guys, Coach Alex Sterner here with Electrum Performance, and today we're going to go over a couple of our favorite exercises for Jiu Jitsu.
All right, I'm here at the Electrum Performance with Coach Alex. Coach, thank you so much for having me here. So Coach Alex is going to talk about a little bit about his 3 exercises that he likes, right, most. And I'll talk about the 3 exercises that I like most for Jiu Jitsu. And we're going to talk a little bit like back and forth, and you guys can learn from us. But this guy here is helping the team, he's helping the Jiu Jitsu community, and he's doing a great job, amazing job, and he's I can say that, he's a nerd in weightlifting.
I'm a little bit of a nerd.
Thank you, Coach. Let's do it, let's do it. All right, the first exercise that I really like to do when I'm lifting weights for Jiu Jitsu is a front squat. So Coach is gonna grab the bar, you got a nice posture, put the bar over the shoulders, the legs align with the shoulder, like the feet align with the shoulder, and then you start squatting back and forth. So Coach has amazing form right here, squatting all the way down and all the way up. And what I like from this exercise is that you work with your quads, your lower back, your posture, your core, right? So, and this is like something that I use in order like to finish a takedown, or to have a good posture inside a closed guard, or even have a good posture like while I'm passing the guard. Okay, not only that, but the legs are important to play guard as well. So definitely like squats are my favorite exercise, and this is one of the exercises that I do, you know, at least like once or twice a week.
And something to keep in mind is that a lot of people have reservations for the front squat because it's hard for them to get into position. There's a bunch of ways that we can also do this. We can go to the butterfly method, which crosses the hands out in front. And I think you said this is the one you prefer, right?
Yeah, I like that better. Yeah.
Same thing, we're still supporting it with the shoulders. We're just holding the arms slightly differently. Some people, if they can't get either of these 2 variations, you can use lifting straps or even a rag if you don't have lifting straps. And you simply attach them to the bar, just like this. And from here, like if you have serious limitations, let's say you're coming back from a shoulder injury, you know, you had a training partner that Kimura'd you and just went too far with it. What we can do is we can hold on here, and this gives us more leeway where our arms don't have to be in such a compromised position to still do the same exact motion. And because the bar is still in front of us, it still has that same demand on posture. Like Professor mentioned earlier, you really have to stabilize with the low and mid back while the legs do the majority of the work.
Yeah, and always when you're pushing up, you got to use their heels, right? Like heels on the floor, and then push really hard.
Yep, we want to make sure that we're driving through the whole foot, and sometimes, especially with an upright squat like this, people will let the knees drift too far forward so that the heels lift up. We want to make sure that we're focusing on driving through the heels, really the whole foot, but particularly the heels, so that we can produce as much force as possible in a nice, safe context.
And I never thought about using this.
Yeah, no, it can help.
Because always when I try to do the regular grips, like look, I don't have too much flexibility on my wrist.
It's because the biceps are too big.
Yeah, so I prefer to go like this, you know, and I put the bar like right on top of my shoulder here, and then I go like, just like you did.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect exercise, amazing, great for you.
So the first exercise I want to go over is something a little less conventional than some of the exercises that we're going to get into today. This isn't something that's necessarily really effective at building huge muscles, but it has a lot of transfer to Jiu Jitsu, and that's for a couple reasons. Before I start to get to it, let's have Andre go ahead and body lock the sandbag. And here we're using a 90-pound sandbag. And he's not just going to hold it, but generally we're going to have our athletes walk around with it. They can walk up and down turf. Here we're just going to use this mat space. And this does a really good job of accomplishing a few things. First off, his upper body is maintaining an isometric contraction to keep that body locked position. There's also a huge demand on his posture. You might not see it. He's making it look pretty easy, but the bag is pulling his body forward, and he has to use all those postural muscles to maintain that position. And the last thing that might not be apparent to a viewer, but I'm sure Andre is starting to feel it, is the fact that pulling that 90-pound bag into your chest makes it really hard to breathe, which also has a high degree of transfer to Jiu Jitsu. And if we wanted to get more advanced with it, we could start to do things like sandbag squats with it, right? And you can mix these in with some of these carries. It's a really good way of doing specific conditioning that can help give a little bit extra oomph for those later rounds on the mat.
Yeah, definitely I feel my breath here.
It's tough, right?
Yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah, and if we do this for a few minutes at a time, then you have a short rest period and go again. It can have a very similar demand to hard rounds, you know, when people pressure passing, body lock passing in jiu-jitsu.
All right, my second exercise is the negative pull-ups, or the pull-up negative, right? And this exercise really helps my grip. So coach will grab the bar, and then he's gonna step up, and then he's gonna work only on the way down, super slow, with a really strong core, slowly. Like he step up, fix this, coach, there you go, and he goes down like slowly. So every time that I do this exercise, I feel that my grips get really, really strong. So you go up, and then you go down super slow. So I started doing this exercise like a couple years ago with Coach Alex, and definitely like we worked together for a couple years, and helped me to win Worlds 2017. And I remember when I was fighting, controlling my opponents, I felt my grip was super strong, because during the whole camp that year, not only ADCC 2017, but also ADCC 2017, but also Worlds, right? I fought Worlds first, and then ADCC. We kept the whole year like doing this exercise. And I remember we used to do like sets of 6 to 8, right? So going up and going down. So the grip, I saw the coach like grab like this, right? I remember that I used to do like grabbing like that as well.
Yep.
Right? So,
and I don't think there's necessarily one right way to grip it. Just like in jiu-jitsu, sometimes you're making a grip where your fingers are down. Other times you'll do it with the palm more supinated. So both have validity. Generally, whatever one you can do and train with a high degree of effort that doesn't bother any of your joints.
Yeah, and you can add a lot of weight because you step up on the way up, right? So you use your legs, and then you just work on the way down.
Exactly. So your muscles are stronger in that negative or concentric phase by about 20 or 30%. So you can do 20 or 30% more weight on the way down, then you can pull yourself back up. And that's also part of the reason why it taxes the forearms and the grip so well, because we're using such significant weight, and we're doing it for a longer duration. Trying to go down over 4 or 5 seconds and repeat that, it's really good for endurance as well as the strength of those muscles.
Amazing.
So the next exercise that I want to go over is a deficit reverse lunge. So we have some bumper plates set up to use as a deficit. Andre's going to go ahead and step up to the top, and he's going to perform his reverse lunge off of that deficit. And as he steps back, there's a couple things we want to keep in mind. First off, if we're creating a deficit, we want to make sure that the knee goes lower than that to really take advantage of this. So there's really no point in putting it there at all. Another thing we want to do is make sure we're keeping our focus or our weight distribution on that lead leg. And you can tell that Professor's doing that by the fact that his dumbbells aren't moving too far back. They're staying close to that lead leg. If you see those dumbbells traveling further back, he's probably got too much weight on that back leg. Now, something I want to point out, go ahead and pause at the bottom. If you look at the joint angles of his hip and his knee here, it's a very specific position that you'll see a lot in jiu-jitsu, ranging from taking shots to playing guard. It's a slightly different orientation of the body, but having strength from that very bunched up position or the deep knee and hip flexion that occurs here is really crucial if you want to have an active, dangerous guard. And not only that, usually later in the sets, you'll start, huffing and puffing a bit. It's difficult in terms of cardio as well. So I think it's an all-around great exercise and a super efficient use of your time if you're short on time.
Yeah, another thing that I like with the dumbbells, it works in your grips. I definitely we use that a lot.
For sure. And again, it's in that endurance context. It's not about gripping really, really hard for 10 seconds. You have to maintain it for that entire set.
Another exercise that I really like, this is my third one, is the power clean pulls. Okay, so it's really effective, really good. You work with your legs. So as you can see, like coach, you have a good posture. Just pull and let the weight go down. So I love this. So he goes, pull, you work with your lower back. So the thing that I like from this exercise is that you work with your legs, you work with your core, your lower back, your back muscle, and your pull. So as you can see, like my favorite exercise always, it requires like grips. So I like this because you still work with your grips. And just like I talked with coach before, like it's very common that people, they try to do the Olympic lifting, you know, and they don't know how to do, and sometimes their posture is really messed. Like they try to lift the weight right here, or they try to go overhead, and sometimes they can like hurt their back because they don't have much technique.
Or in college, you know, I dislocated my wrist before I knew what I was doing a power clean, where I went to bail the bar and my wrist or my elbow got stuck against my leg and the bar came down in my hand. You know, and when you're training for another event, sometimes it doesn't make sense to put all the hours it takes to learn that motion, especially if we get most of the benefit from that pull. We don't even have to worry about the catch. So it tends to work really well for athletes. And you'll see the same thing in the NFL, in the NBA. Sometimes they don't bother teaching the entire clean because you can get a lot of the benefit here. So it tends to be a safer option for athletes.
Yeah, so I did like some Olympic lifting like back in 2003. I started in 2003. I was one of the first athletes in Jiu-Jitsu to do like powerlifting like that. And I remember that my former coach used to tell me about the posture, and sometimes like, people, they don't know how to posture doing this exercise, where they try to pull with their shoulder behind their knees. So you gotta be slightly like a little bit in front of your knee. You gotta have a nice squat, and you wanna pull with your legs, right? You don't wanna pull with your body. And I see like sometimes people, they do this and then they try to do like that, right?
A good cue is imagining that your arms are just ropes with hooks on the end, right? The hooks are your grips, maintaining that, but we just want we don't want the power to come from the arms, right? Another phrase people use is when the elbow bends, power ends. Right, so we want to keep that arm straight, so we force the lower body to do most of the explosion, then we just finish with a nice shrug.
And I like this shrug. You know, it definitely works really well.
We can tell that you like this shrug.
I like that, I like that. So, you know, I think like the shrug we use to defend, but also the shrug we use to attack. So every time you're squeezing someone, you got a shrug. So for example, if I got a nice rear naked choke, I got a shrug, you know? If I got a nice armbar, I got a shrug. You know, everything that I'm doing to attack my opponent and squeeze my opponent, it requires a little bit of the shrug and the grips.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
So an exercise that I really like to break down for jiu-jitsu fighters is the bench press. It could be super simple, but there's a couple things that I always want to keep in mind. First off, I like to really have a good shoulder position or a stacked joint for the bench press. And what I mean by that is I like to focus on having the lifter press their shoulders into the bench. They're drawing their shoulder blades back. Think of it like a gi check at an IBJJF event. When you're walking up to get your gi checked, you have to straighten your arms out in front of you. But oftentimes, especially if you're built like myself, if you push your arms forward, those sleeves are going to slide forward. You're going to fail that gi check. And very much, you know, in a very similar vein, we want to keep that shoulder posture to keep our shoulders healthy while we're pressing. So even though we straighten the arms, we keep our shoulders drawn back, and Andre is going to make sure to keep his shoulders pressed against the bench as he does so. Another thing I like to focus on is where we're setting the bar. And I want to think about this like a wrist lock, right? If I took Andre's hand and I tried to wrist lock him by pushing here, how hard would I have to push to break your wrist? Like really hard, like the weight of a car. But all of a sudden, if I move my hand back and I start pressing at a point more back here, it becomes much, much easier to cause damage to the wrist. So we want to keep that in mind. We want to dig that bar low into the hand so that it sits over top of the bones of the forearm. So Andre already went ahead and did that. He's going to keep his shoulders back as he benches. Pull down to the lower chest and up. And something else that he did unconsciously without even realizing, to make sure he doesn't hit the hooks, he got set up in a position where his eyes were directly under the bar. Another thing that we want to really keep in mind. So Professor, what positions do you find pressing to be really, really useful in jiu-jitsu?
I think like there's a way that we press towards the leg, right? Also up the head, like over the head, right? But the press like here, I feel like that you can work like both ways. You know, get stronger like both ways.
For sure.
But definitely like when somebody's on the side control, I need to press. You know, when sometimes I need to explode to find a space to get my underhook. You know, so you always need to press. Yeah.
So guys, I think this was a really cool context for myself to bring 3 exercises to the table and Professor to bring 3 exercises to the table that we think are really important for jiu-jitsu athletes to train in the weight room to get ready for jiu-jitsu.
Yes, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.